If flash power settings confuse you, this video is going to clear a few things up. All right, most photographers, even beginners, have gotten the message that using your flash in manual mode is the key to total creative control with your lighting. But manual flash power settings might be a little confusing, especially since different manufacturers display those settings differently. Now, if you've only been shooting in TTL mode, manual settings might be totally unfamiliar to you. But don't worry, by the end of this video, you'll understand how manual flash power settings work, and you'll be able to select the right setting no matter what type of flash or strobe you're using. All right, let's talk about why flash power settings are so important. Look, flash photography is all about adding light to a scene to get the look that you want. You might use flash as the main source of lighting for your photo, and you might use it to balance out the ambient light, like when you've got strong backlighting or on your subject and your subject might be kind of dark or in the shadows. You can use flash to brighten them up. Or you might use flash for, enhancing a portrait or some special effect. Either way, the intensity or the amount of light coming out of a flash can be dialed up or down by adjusting your flash power setting. If you're doing this using manual settings, you'll have complete and consistent control over your lighting in your shots. And if you use TTL for flash, the flash power setting is going to be adjusted automatically for you. One way or the other, the flash power setting is going to need to be adjusted based on the situation. Most flash units allow you to adjust their output from full power all the way down to 1/28th power. And you need the ability to adjust power settings because you wouldn't want to use full power all the time. If you did that, you'd drain the battery faster, you'd have longer recycle times, and usually full power is just too strong for most portrait setup. For example, I typically use an 1/8 power or a 1/4 power on my speed lights for the key light, or 1/16th power if I'm using a more powerful strobe. Your choice of power settings is going to depend on things like the distance from the light to the subject, the type of modifier you're using, and your camera settings. Now, every setup and situation is different, and that's why we need to use different power settings at different times. All right, now here's a quick look at how power settings are typically displayed. Full power is displayed as 1/1. The next step down is half power, displayed as 1/2, and then you've got 1/4 power, an 1/8, 16th, a 32nd, a 64th, 1/28th, and some offer 1/256 and 1/512th power settings. And you can see each setting is 1/2 the previous setting. And that lines up with the way everything works with photography, lighting, and exposure. Light is measured by cutting it in half or doubling it. Now, some brands like Profoto and Westcott use integers instead of fractions to indicate power settings. Profoto uses 10:1, 10 being full power and 1 being 1/512th power, while Westcott uses 9:1. So for every full integer you move down the scale, you're cutting the power in half. So with Westcott, 9 is full power, 8 is half power. And, I know this sounds a little confusing, but you get used to it with practice. Okay, so there's just one thing that I should mention. Now, remember how I said that we measure exposure and light power settings by doubling or cutting the light in half? Well, there are in-between increments that we sometimes use. Like, for example, we can also adjust our settings in 1/3 stop increments. So I'm just going to try to keep things simple by using plain old full stops, not in-betweens for this video. But sometimes if you really need to be precise and you can't do it any other way, using those in-between settings might be helpful. But again, just for now, we're going to deal with normal f-stops. All right, so let's do a working example of how you might use manual flash settings to create a good exposure for a portrait. So let's say you're doing a portrait and you set up your key light with a speed light and an umbrella modifier. Now, first you might try setting your flash to 1/8 power. So you place your subject, you do a test shot, and you look at the back of the camera to see that the photo is just a little too dark. So you adjust the flash power setting to a 1/4 power. That's double the power that you previously used, which is the same as 1 f-stop brighter. All right, so you take a test shot again and you see that the exposure looks brighter. If you're using a Westcott flash, you might start with a setting of 6, which is the same as 1/8 power. And if you have to make the same adjustment as in the previous example, you'll adjust the power setting to 7, which is the same as a 1/4 power. All right, so to wrap things up, manual flash power settings are either displayed as fractions of a flash's full power or as integers, depending on the manufacturer. Each major setting change either doubles the flash power or cuts it in half. And there are also in between adjustments if you want to be more precise. So I recommend you go over your flash power settings and get some practice in so you can start using your flash with more control and consistency. Now, if you'd like to learn exactly how to set up your flash for portraits, including recommendations on the actual gear I use, I highly recommend that you download my free guide, the 10-minute guide to off-camera flash. And this is going to get you on the fast track to taking beautiful portraits with your flash. This free bonus bundle also includes the very handy camera bag checklist, the photoshoot notebook sheet so that you can have a convenient way to jot down your lighting setups and all your settings for a particular shot. And this way you can, build up your own lighting recipe notebook. Plus, you're also going to get a couple of model release templates that I use for my portrait shoots. So click the link in the video description below to get all of this for free. Okay, guys, I hope you found this video useful. Let me know in the comments, and be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. That's about all I've got for you today. I'll see you next time.